I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Jake, and for years I thought I had a perfect life. I had a decent job, a house in the suburbs, and a wife who seemed to love me. Her name is Sarah, and she's beautiful, smart, and ambitious. We had been married for 7 years, and I honestly thought we were on the right track. But lately, something felt off. It started with little things. Sarah was coming home later from work, claiming she had to put in extra hours for a project. At first I was supportive, even proud of her dedication. But then there were the texts. I'd catch her on her phone, laughing and typing away, her expression shifting from cheerful to guarded when I walked in. I tried to brush it off as paranoia. After all, relationships go through phases, right? But the nagging feeling kept eating away at me. One evening I returned home early from work, hoping to surprise her. I pulled into the driveway, my heart light with the thought of a cozy dinner. But when I stepped inside, the silence hit me like a brick wall. I called out, but there was no response. I made my way to our bedroom, and that's when I noticed her phone on the nightstand, buzzing with notifications. Curiosity got the better of me, and I picked it up. There it was, messages from a number I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through them. It wasn't just friendly banter, they were flirtatious, laced with innuendos. My heart raced as I read a message that said, "Can't wait to see you again. Last time was unforgettable." I felt sick. I had to know who this was. Then, just as I was piecing it together, I heard the front door open. My heart raced, and I quickly tossed the phone back onto the nightstand, trying to act nonchalant. Sarah walked in, looking radiant and oblivious. She smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, honey, you're home early," she said, almost too cheerfully. "Yeah, I thought I'd surprise you. How was your day?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Oh, you know, the usual. Just busy with work," she replied, avoiding eye contact. But I could see the truth in her eyes. She was lying. That night sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, my mind racing. I couldn't believe this was happening. My wife, the woman I trusted with my life, was cheating on me. But with whom? My gut said it was someone I knew. As the night dragged on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in the middle of a twisted game of chess, and the stakes were my heart. The next day, I decided to dig deeper. I began scanning her social media, scrutinizing every comment and picture. That's when I found it. An old friend of mine, Max, was liking and commenting on nearly every post. Max and I had been rivals in college, and I had always suspected he had a thing for Sarah back then. The thought of him was like a festering wound. I had to know for certain. And so, the investigation began. I started tracking her movements, making excuses to leave the house and follow her. It felt like a scene from a bad movie. I watched as she met up with Max at a cafe, their body language unmistakable. The intimacy between them was clear. I could feel the heat of anger and betrayal coursing through my veins. I couldn't confront her just yet. I needed to formulate a plan. She thought she could get away with this, but I was determined to make her pay. And so I started plotting my revenge. Deep down, I was broken, but I also felt a surge of power. I would crush Max in business and leave Sarah regretting everything. They would see I wasn't just some fool to be taken lightly. I spent the next few weeks gathering information, setting the stage for my revenge. I can't say I enjoyed the process, but it was a distraction from the pain. I was determined to emerge from this ordeal not just intact but victorious. As I prepared for my next move, I reflected on how naive I had been. It was shocking to realize how trust could shatter in the blink of an eye. I used to believe that love was enough, but now I knew better. Love meant nothing when betrayal was involved. This was just the beginning, and I was ready for the storm that was about to unfold. After I confirmed my worst suspicions, a cold determination settled in. I had a plan in mind, and I couldn't afford any mistakes. I needed to gather evidence of Sarah's infidelity while simultaneously preparing to take down Max. I spent hours strategizing, plotting every move like a general preparing for war. The first step was to confront Sarah, but not yet. I wanted her to think everything was normal while I gathered more proof. I returned to my routine, acting as if nothing was wrong, but inside I was boiling. The way she would smile at me, kiss me goodnight, it felt like a facade, an act she was putting on to keep me in the dark. I started looking into the business side of things, digging up dirt on Max's company. He had just started a tech firm that was gaining traction, but I had insider connections. I reached out to a few contacts who would help me learn everything I could about his operations. I wanted to find a weak spot and exploit it. A week passed, and I was feeling the strain. I felt like I was living in two worlds, one where I was a devoted husband and another where I was a vengeful detective. I couldn't sleep, and my work was suffering. Friends noticed, and it seemed like they were waiting for me to open up, but I kept everything bottled inside. Then came the day of the confrontation. I knew I couldn't keep living this charade. I had enough evidence now to confront Sarah. I gathered some of the incriminating texts and arranged them neatly on my phone, my heart pounding as I prepared for the storm. That evening, I waited for her to come home, a quiet rage simmering beneath my calm exterior. When she walked in, she looked tired but cheerful. My stomach twisted as I remembered how that light in her eyes had been extinguished for someone else. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" she asked, beaming. "Can we talk?" I said, my voice steady but firm. Her smile faltered and something shifted in the air. "Sure, what's up?" I gestured for her to sit down. My heart raced as I pulled out my phone and faced her. "I found something you need to explain." Her initial confidence faded as I showed her the messages. I watched her face drain of color, her eyes darting back and forth as she processed. "The evidence? Jake, I can explain," she stammered. "Explain what? How you've been lying to me, how you've been seeing Max behind my back. I saw the way you two were together." I spat, my voice rising with each word. "It's not what you think, we were just talking, it meant nothing." She pleaded, her tone shifting from defensive to desperate. "Talking? Is that what you call it? Because it sure sounds like something else to me." I snapped, feeling the anger boil over. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. "Don't. You've betrayed me and you expect me to just forgive you." Tears started streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Jake. I didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't mean for it to happen. That's your excuse." I interrupted, my voice dripping with disdain. "You were supposed to be my partner, my wife. Instead, you were out there with my old rival, betraying everything we built together." She looked defeated, her shoulders slumped. I was feeling lonely and Max was there for me. "It was a mistake, Jake. Please, I love you, I want to make this work." Hearing those words stung even more. I wanted to believe her, to hope that love could somehow fix this mess. But deep down, I knew the damage was done. "You think I can just forget about this? You think our relationship can survive on apologies and I love yous? I can't trust you anymore, Sarah." Her sobs echoed in the room, but my heart was hardening. I had loved her for years, but betrayal was a poison that would take time to purge. I stood up, unable to look at her any longer. "I need some space." I walked out of the room, my heart heavy and my mind racing. The confrontation felt surreal. I had hoped for clarity, but all I felt was a profound sense of loss. In the days that followed, I wrestled with my emotions. Part of me wanted to salvage our marriage, but I knew that would require a level of trust that had been shattered. As I processed everything, one thought kept creeping in. I wanted revenge. I needed to put my plan into action, to show Sarah and Max that I wouldn't be the one left broken. I wanted them to feel the consequences of their actions, and I was willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. The pain was still fresh, but the fire of vengeance was igniting within me. Little did they know, I was just getting started. After the confrontation with Sarah, I felt like I was walking through a fog. The betrayal weighed heavily on my heart, but beneath that pain simmered a fierce determination to take control of the situation. It was time to exact my revenge on Max, the man who had not only betrayed my trust but had also crossed a line that should never have been crossed. I spent the next few days gathering information about Max's business, diving deep into his company's operations. I reached out to old contacts in the industry, friends who had once been rivals but had become allies over time. One of them, a guy named Tom, had insider knowledge about Max's company that could be incredibly useful. "Hey Tom," I said when he picked up the phone. "I need your help with something. You remember Max, right?" "Yeah, the guy from college who always had to one-up me." "Of course, what's he up to these days?" Tom asked, sounding genuinely interested. "Building a tech firm. I need to know if there are any vulnerabilities, any dirty laundry I can dig up." There was a pause on the other end of the line. You planning something, you know how ruthless Max can be. He's not the only one who can play that game, I replied, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Tom laughed, but there was an edge to it. All right, let me see what I can find out. I've got a few connections who might know something. As we hung up, I felt a sense of purpose wash over me. Max had built his company into something respectable, but I knew from our college days that he wasn't above shady dealings. If there was a way to bring him down, I would find it. In the meantime, Sarah was doing everything she could to salvage our marriage, but I wasn't ready to entertain her apologies just yet. She would send me text after text, trying to reach out and talk, but I kept my distance. I needed to focus on my plan, and letting her back in would only cloud my judgment. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights that I finally received Tom's call. "I've got something for you," he said, sounding a mix of excited and cautious. "What did you find out?" "Max's company is getting some funding from a tech incubator, but there are rumors that they're being investigated for fraud. Apparently, they've been inflating their numbers to attract investors. If you could get proof of that, you could really hurt him." My heart raced at the news. This was the opening I needed. How do I find proof? "I have a contact at the incubator. I can get you a meeting. Just act casual and you'll be able to dig around." "Thanks, Tom. You've just given me the ammunition I need." The next few days were a blur of planning and strategizing. I set up a meeting under the guise of wanting to invest in Max's company myself. I wanted to appear as a potential ally while secretly gathering intel. If I could get my hands on solid evidence of their fraudulent activities, Max would be finished. The day of the meeting arrived and I put on my best business attire. I practiced my lines in the mirror, reminding myself to keep my composure. I couldn't let anyone see the rage bubbling beneath the surface. When I walked into the meeting, I was greeted by a sharp-looking woman named Lisa, who worked for the incubator. She didn't know me from Adam, which gave me a slight edge. I introduced myself and talked about my interest in tech startups, carefully steering the conversation toward Max's company. "Ah, yes, they're quite the up-and-comers," she said, her tone a mix of admiration and skepticism. "But they do have some questions surrounding their financials." "What do you mean?" I asked, feigning ignorance. Lisa leaned in, lowering her voice. "There are some discrepancies in their funding reports. We've been looking into them. Some numbers just don't add up." My heart raced. This was exactly what I needed. "Is there any hard evidence, anything I could see?" She hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I can't officially share anything, but if you look around the office, you might find something. Just don't mention my name." I spent the next hour roaming the office, pretending to admire the decor while searching for anything that could serve as proof. I found a folder left unattended on a desk labeled Financial Projections. My hands trembled as I opened it, skimming through the pages filled with numbers that clearly didn't match previous reports. I took pictures with my phone, feeling a rush of excitement as I secured the evidence I needed. After thanking Lisa for her time, I left the office, a sense of victory coursing through me. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't shake the feeling of triumph mixed with bitterness. I was about to ruin Max's life, not just because of Sarah, but also for everything he had tried to take from me over the years. It felt right, almost poetic. That night I sat down with the evidence I had gathered, reviewing the photos. This was it. I had Max in a corner, and soon enough he would know what it felt like to lose everything. The thought of Sarah watching it all unfold filled me with a strange sense of satisfaction. She had made her choices, and now it was time for her to face the consequences. As I finalized my plan, I reflected on how far I had come. The pain of betrayal had been unbearable, but I was transforming that pain into power. This was my moment, and I was ready to take charge of my life again. I began drafting an anonymous tip to the authorities, detailing the fraudulent activities of Max's company. This was just the beginning, and the storm was about to break loose. The pieces were falling into place, and soon everything would change. With the evidence of Max's fraudulent activities firmly in my grasp, I set about executing the next phase of my plan. I knew that sending an anonymous tip to the authorities would create a ripple effect, but I also needed to ensure that the fallout reached Sarah. I couldn't let her forget the consequences of her actions, and seeing Max fall from grace was a crucial part of that. I crafted the tip meticulously. I made sure to include all the details, the discrepancies in the financial reports, the inflated numbers, and hints of shady dealings. I signed it anonymously, knowing that the authorities would take it seriously. After all, it was hard evidence that pointed to potential fraud. I could almost feel the thrill of revenge surging through me as I hit send. Once that was done, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I had taken control of the narrative. My life was no longer dictated by Sarah's betrayal or Max's arrogance. I was the one pulling the strings now. But as the days passed, I began to realize that I was still trapped in a web of emotions. I had anticipated the satisfaction of revenge, yet the bitterness lingered. It wasn't just about Max, it was about Sarah too. I wanted her to know that I wouldn't be broken, that I wouldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. I was done being the nice guy. As I continued my day-to-day routine, I started to notice changes around the house. Sarah was trying hard to reconnect. She cooked meals, left notes, and even bought flowers. Part of me wanted to respond to her gestures, to allow the wounds to heal, but the anger was still raw. I had to keep reminding myself that this was not just about getting back at Max. It was about reclaiming my dignity. One evening, while I was working late, I received a call from Tom. "Jake, you won't believe this," he said, excitement bubbling in his voice. "The authorities are investigating Max's company based on that tip you sent. They're going to look into the financials." I felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with a shiver of anticipation. "Do you think they'll find anything?" "Absolutely. If they dig deep enough, there's no way they can overlook those discrepancies. You've done it, man. This could ruin him." As the reality of Tom's words hit me, I realized I had crossed a threshold from which there would be no return. I was fully committed to this path of vengeance, and I could feel the grip of anger slipping away, replaced by a sense of power. In the days that followed, I kept my eye on Sarah. She was trying her best to smooth things over, but I wasn't ready to forgive her. I needed her to see that her choices had consequences. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, not just for my sake, but because I believed it was necessary for her growth. Then came the day I had been waiting for. I was sitting at home when Sarah burst through the door, a look of panic mixed with disbelief on her face. "Jake, have you seen the news?" My heart raced at her tone. "What news?" "There's an investigation into Max's company. They're looking into financial fraud. It's all over the media." I feigned surprise, though I felt a smug satisfaction swelling inside. "Really? That's surprising." "Surprising, Jake, this is serious. His entire career could be ruined. What if he goes to jail?" Her panic felt almost satisfying, like a twisted validation of my actions. "I guess he should have thought twice about his choices," I said, my voice steady, but I could see the confusion and fear in her eyes. "Jake, this isn't just about Max. He's not just some rival, he's a person. He could lose everything. And what about us? What if this comes back to haunt us?" I held her gaze, allowing her words to sink in. "What comes around goes around, Sarah. Maybe this is a wake-up call for you, for both of us." She took a step back, her expression shifting from panic to anger. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? You're reveling in his downfall. What's wrong with you? You're not the man I married." "Maybe I'm not," I replied, my voice firm. "Maybe the man you married would have stayed oblivious while you cheated on him." Her words faded into silence, and for a moment the tension between us was palpable. I could see the realization dawning on her. She was witnessing the transformation in me, and I wasn't going to revert back to the man who accepted her lies. "Jake, please," she pleaded, but I shook my head. "I think it's time you understand that actions have consequences," I said, my voice low but steady. "You made your choice, and now you'll face it." I turned away, leaving her standing there, the weight of the moment sinking in. In the days that followed, news of the investigation spread like wildfire. Reports surfaced about Max's questionable practices, and I couldn't help but watch as his world began to collapse. Investors pulled out, and the media scrutinized every move he made. I kept my distance from Sarah, watching her struggle to process everything. I could see the regret in her eyes, and though it felt good to observe, I knew I had to remain steadfast. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't just about revenge. It was about me reclaiming my identity and dignity. As Max's empire crumbled, I found a strange sense of satisfaction in knowing that I had played a part in it. I was no longer the victim. I was the victor. I had reclaimed my power and was ready to move on, even if it meant leaving Sarah behind. But deep down, I wondered if this was truly the end, or just the beginning of a much larger transformation. I was a man changed by betrayal, and while my heart was still bruised, I was starting to feel alive again. I was ready for whatever came next. As Max's downfall continued to unfold, I settled into a new rhythm. The news reports became a constant background noise in my life, detailing the unraveling of someone who had once been my rival. Investors were pulling out, and his reputation was in tatters. I could almost feel the echoes of his panic reverberating through the media, each headline a reminder of my small but significant victory. Meanwhile, Sarah was reeling. I watched as she swung from anger to despair, trying to process the reality of her choices. The emotional distance between us had become a chasm. She had lost not just Max's career, but a part of our relationship, too. It was painful to see her struggle, but I was adamant that she needed to face the consequences of her actions. One night after catching another news segment about Max's impending financial ruin, I came home to find Sarah sitting on the couch, her face buried in her hands. The sight stirred something inside me, a complex cocktail of sympathy, anger, and the lingering desire for justice. I took a moment to gather my thoughts before approaching her. "Sarah," I said softly, testing the waters. She looked up, her eyes red from tears. "Jake, I can't believe this is happening. I never thought it would come to this." I didn't realize how much damage I had done until now. I took a deep breath, trying to remain composed. "You had to know there would be consequences. This isn't just about Max losing his job, it's about your choices too." "But I made a mistake," she cried, her voice cracking. "I was lonely and I let it get out of hand. I never meant for it to hurt anyone, especially you." I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the hurt was still fresh and trust was a fragile thing. "Loneliness doesn't justify betrayal, Sarah. You chose to cheat on me with him. You can't just sweep that under the rug." Her expression shifted from despair to frustration. "I don't know what you want me to say. I'm sorry. I was stupid, but I'm trying to be better." "Can't we just what?" I interrupted, my voice rising slightly. "Pretend none of this happened. You think saying you're sorry is enough to fix everything?" She fell silent, and we both sat in the weight of our reality. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes again, but this time I didn't feel that familiar pang of guilt. I had held on to my anger for too long, and maybe it was time to let it go, but not without making her understand the gravity of her actions. "Sarah, I need you to understand something," I said, softer this time. "This is just about you being lonely or making a mistake. It's about trust, and you shattered mine. It's going to take a lot more than apologies to fix this." "I know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I just don't know how to fix it. I want to make it right, but I can't do it alone." As I looked at her, I saw the desperation in her eyes. Part of me wanted to reassure her, to tell her that we could work through this together, but the other part was adamant that I needed to stand my ground. I couldn't just let her back in without truly understanding the impact of her betrayal. In the following days, Sarah continued to reach out, trying to connect with me. She apologized repeatedly, even trying to make grand gestures like cooking dinner and planning little outings. But I remained somewhat detached. It felt wrong to suddenly act as if everything was fine, and I wanted her to understand that rebuilding trust would be a slow, painful process. And then, just when I thought I had everything figured out, an unexpected twist occurred. One morning, while I was sitting at my desk scrolling through the news, I stumbled upon an article that sent chills down my spine. It reported that Max had decided to fight back against the investigation, claiming it was a smear campaign initiated by a jealous competitor. As I read on, I saw his face plastered across the screen, defiant and determined. I couldn't help but feel a mix of dread and curiosity. What if Max turned the tables on me? What if he decided to expose my involvement in the tip? My heart raced at the thought of being dragged into the mud along with him. I had wanted to take him down, but I hadn't anticipated that he might retaliate. I called Tom, needing to gauge whether this was a serious threat. "Jake, I've seen the news," he said when he answered. "Max is a fighter. He won't go down without a fight." "What does that mean for me?" I asked, anxiety creeping into my words. "He might try to shift the blame, throw someone under the bus. You need to be careful. If he connects any dots back to you, it could get messy." The implications of his words hung heavy in the air. I had wanted to destroy Max, but now I had to consider the repercussions of my revenge. I had entered a dangerous game, and if I wasn't careful, I could end up losing everything in the process. That evening, I confronted Sarah about Max's new strategy. "He's claiming that the investigation is a smear campaign. He might try to come after me." Her eyes widened in shock. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet. I just need to be careful," I replied, feeling the weight of uncertainty settle over me. "Jake, please, if he tries to come after you, you have to let me help. I know I messed up, but I want to be here for you. I don't want you to go through this alone." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to push her away, to continue the emotional distance I had established. But another part of me recognized that we were in this mess together. I had kept her at arm's length, but now I was starting to see that there was a glimmer of hope for us, even amidst the wreckage. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier. "But this will take time. You'll have to prove to me that we can work through this. I need to see you're truly committed to fixing this." She nodded, determination in her eyes. "I will, I promise." As we faced the unknown together, a fragile bond formed between us, one built on shared conflict and the hope of redemption. It wouldn't be easy, and the road ahead was still fraught with obstacles, but perhaps it was time to acknowledge that healing could begin, even in the shadow of betrayal. With Max gearing up for a fight, I realized I had to prepare for whatever repercussions might come my way. I was still on a path of revenge, but now it was intertwined with the complexity of my relationship with Sarah. We were standing at a crossroads, and I had to decide if I would continue down the path of vengeance or take a step toward healing. The decision loomed over me, but one thing was clear: the game was far from over. As the days passed, the tension surrounding Max's impending downfall continued to escalate. The media frenzy surrounding his company's investigation cast a shadow over everything. Sarah and I found ourselves glued to the news, both anxious and uncertain about how this would all unfold. We were no longer just a couple on the brink of collapse. We were two people caught in a storm, and I knew that how we navigated this would determine our future. I had reached a crossroads. While I was still driven by the desire for revenge, I was also realizing that my relationship with Sarah could either be a casualty of this war or a bridge to healing. I felt the weight of that decision pressing down on me. I had been so focused on Max that I had lost sight of how my actions affected Sarah. I needed to make a choice, one that would either lead me to a life of continued hostility or one that allowed for the possibility of reconciliation. One afternoon, while sitting at home, I received a call from Tom. "Jake, you need to know something," he said, his tone serious. "Max is pushing back hard. He's hired a team of lawyers and they're looking into who sent that tip. If they connect it back to you, it could get ugly." My heart sank. I had anticipated some backlash, but the reality of it hit me like a freight train. I had wanted to destroy Max, but now I was facing the very real possibility of losing everything I had worked for. "What do I do?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. "You need to cover your tracks. If you can get out ahead of this and make it clear you had nothing to do with it, you'll be fine." "But it's a race against time," he warned. I hung up, my mind racing. I had to think fast. I wanted revenge, but I didn't want to sacrifice my future in the process. I had to protect myself without making it obvious that I was terrified. That evening I sat down with Sarah. I needed to be honest with her about what was happening. "Max is fighting back," I said, pouring out my fears. "He's trying to connect the tip to me. If he succeeds, it could ruin me." Her eyes widened in concern. "We need to come up with a plan then. You can't face this alone." "I know, but I can't let you get dragged into this." "You've already been through enough," I replied, trying to shield her from the mess I had created. "Jake, I made my choices, and I need to face the consequences of those choices just like you. We're in this together now," she insisted, her voice steady. I saw the resolve in her eyes, and for the first time since the betrayal, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could face this as partners, despite everything that had happened. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but taking this step together felt right. We spent the next few days preparing a strategy. We worked through potential scenarios and the best ways to protect ourselves. I also began to reach out to my connections, preemptively clarifying my position and ensuring I had an alibi should Max try to implicate me. It was a delicate dance, and I had to be careful not to draw too much attention to myself. Meanwhile, Max continued to spiral. As news reports detailed the investigation's findings, it became more apparent that his company was on the brink of collapse. He was publicly defiant, but behind the scenes, I could see the signs of desperation. The media thrived on his downfall, and I found a dark satisfaction in watching his world crumble. Yet it was tempered by the uncertainty of my own fate. Then, one fateful evening, I received a call from Tom, this time a sense of urgency in his voice. "Jake, you need to see this. Max is planning to go public, and he's claiming he knows who tipped off the authorities. He's hinting that it was someone close to him." My heart raced. What does that mean? It means he might directly accuse you. "You might want to prepare yourself for fallout," he warned. Panic surged through me, and I felt the walls closing in. This was the moment I had dreaded, the moment my desire for revenge could cost me everything. I had to act fast. That night, Sarah and I stayed up late, combing through every piece of evidence we had and preparing for any insinuations Max might throw my way. We crafted statements, rehearsed responses, and even wrote down potential questions that might be asked of us. For the first time in ages, I felt a sense of unity with her. Despite the betrayal, we were standing together against a common enemy. The next morning, the storm hit. Max went public and the headlines were everywhere. Tech CEO claims betrayal from within, points fingers at close associates. I felt my heart drop as I read the articles, his accusations vague but ominous. He didn't mention my name outright, but it was clear he was trying to create doubt about anyone who had ever crossed him. I braced myself for the fallout. In the days that followed, I focused on damage control, reaching out to my contacts, and making it clear that I had no involvement in the investigation. I needed to eliminate any doubts about my integrity. But it was exhausting, and the pressure mounted as the media frenzy continued. Throughout this harrowing experience, Sarah remained by my side. She built me up when I felt weak and supported me when the fear threatened to overwhelm me. Slowly but surely, as we faced this storm together, I began to see a glimmer of hope. I realized that perhaps we could emerge from this stronger than before, that the foundation of our relationship could be rebuilt through shared trials. But Max wasn't done yet. In a desperate bid to save his own skin, he attempted to turn the tables, claiming that I had orchestrated the entire investigation. He brought my name into the mix, calling me a jealous competitor desperate to take him down. This was the moment I had feared, but I was ready. I reached out to my legal counsel, prepared to defend my name and my reputation. What surprised me the most, however, was how Sarah reacted. Instead of crumbling under the pressure, she rallied. She stood by me and faced the media as a united front. "My husband is not the enemy," she said in an interview, her voice steady and confident. "We made mistakes, but Jake is not the one to blame. We're in this together." Seeing her defend me in front of the world felt like a turning point. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming our lives and rebuilding what we had lost. As the investigation continued and Max floundered, I realized that while my desire for revenge was powerful, it was the strength of our partnership that would ultimately define our future. With every passing day, the truth began to emerge, and we found ourselves closer, united against the fallout. Eventually, Max's allegations fell apart and the investigation concluded without any wrongdoing on my part. The media shifted its focus away from my name, and Max's empire continued to crumble, eventually leading to his public downfall. As the dust settled, I turned to Sarah. "We made it through," I said softly, finally allowing myself a moment of vulnerability. "Yeah," she replied, a smile breaking across her face. "I think we're stronger than we were before." In that moment, I realized that the ordeal had changed us both. I had entered this battle with a singular focus on revenge, but what I found was a deeper understanding of love, trust, and partnership. We faced the consequences of our actions, and together, we forged a new path. The road to healing wouldn't be easy, but with each step forward, I felt more hopeful about the future. Our journey had been a tumultuous one, filled with betrayal and pain, but it also carried the promise of redemption. And as we stood together, ready to face whatever came next, I felt a newfound strength in knowing that our love, tested by fire, had emerged resilient.